10 seconds, bro. Good start. Okay, bro. Started, bro.
Okay. Okay, now let me go ahead and okay, so we will start with the Mangala Charan prayers. Let's go there. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vande Aham Sri Guru Sri Utapada Kamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gauru Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, so today we are going to talk about the sixth Ashtakam, and we will go through those 8 verses. In between, we'll go through some of the relevant Bhagavad Gita verses, as well as we'll go through the Chaitanya Charitamrita itself. For some of the interim verses between these Sishtastakam verses, because as you know, the Sishtastakam verses are not in sequence, in the sense there are in verses interspersed between the subsequent verses. So what are we talking about? We're talking about what Mahaprabhu said is, if you want to chant purely the holy name, then the essential meaning of Sishtastakam, you have to taste it. And of course, as you all know, ultimate goal of all the Shastras, is to ultimately chant purely the holy name. without interruption. That is the ultimate goal of all the scriptures, and so that you always keep Krishna in your mind while you're chanting. And when you do that, then what happens, a wonderful thing happens, that your mind, which was occupied by the various sense objects created by the most formidable enemy, which is Maya, doesn't have any space to remain, because your mind is fully filled with Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's holy name. And as you know, all the problems of, the basic 4 problems of life are essentially because we are going through the cycle of birth and death. And that is because we are engaged in the activities created by the 3 modes of material nature, which is the tool in the hand of Maya, the formidable enemy. So not to get attracted to that, but to get attracted to Krishna, the most important thing is to chant purely. And to do that, we have to taste, not just read, but we have to taste the essential meaning of Sesastakam. So I will attempt to do that. I'm not really such an advanced devotee, but based on how I understood, that is how I'm going to attempt to explain Sesastakam. And definitely I will welcome comments, feedbacks, and even corrections from the audience who are listening to this discussion that will follow. Okay. So the verse 1 of Sesastakam, I will just read the English part. It essentially glorifies the holy name. And it is the verse number 12 of the 20th chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita in the Antya Lila. Okay. It says, "Let there be all victory for the chanting of the holy name of Lord Krishna, which can cleanse the mirror of the heart and stop the miseries of the blazing fire of material existence." Let's understand that a little bit. What it is trying to say is we are attracted to that material existence, which ultimately kind of implicates us into that blazing fire of material existence. The miseries of material existence is because our mirror of the heart cannot see the beauty of Krishna because it is dirty. It is dirty by those 3 modes of material nature, has made it so dirty, which we have collected, dirt we have collected from millions of lifetimes. And that's why we cannot appreciate the beauty of Lord Krishna. So we are attracted to the beauty of his external energy, which is Maya. And we are getting implicated. But how to cleanse that? It will be able to cleanse when we chant the holy name of Lord Krishna. Okay, and that is why saying, let there be all victory for that. Let that chanting of holy name win. That chanting is the waxing moon that spreads the white lotus of good fortune for all living entities. It is the life and soul of all education. So that is what I was talking a few minutes back. All education means the ultimate, the scriptures, the shastras, which they say. Ultimately, it is saying that you have to chant the holy name all the time. You cannot forget it. That is what the shastra is saying. And when you do that, then that good fortune it is not that it comes, all the good fortune comes suddenly, but it is like a waxing moon. Waxing moon means, as you know, the moons go through that lunar cycle of waning and waxing, right? Fortnight of waning, when the moon becomes like, slowly it reduces in size, and then it becomes crescent, and then it vanishes, Amavasya, the dark night. And then again it increases, it becomes crescent, it becomes half, all the various stages of moon it goes through, and then it becomes full moon. So it's saying it gradually, that good fortune of getting removed from the influence of material nature happens, and gradually one starts get attracted to chanting the holy name. It happens step by step, krame, gradually. That is why the example of waxing moon has been given here. The chanting of the holy name of Krishna expands the blissful ocean of transcendental life. So this is where actually it has been glorified further. That why victory of the chanting of holy name of Lord Krishna? Because we enter into the blissful ocean. It's not a drop of bliss, it's the ocean of bliss of transcendental life. And what else it does? Because the example given before, the blazing fire of material existence, it actually, this name gives a cooling effect. Okay, although you are in the blazing fire of material existence, but it gives you a cooling effect. So you remain peaceful and you are able to taste full nectar at every step. Okay? So that's the verse 1. It is actually glorifying the holy name. Why chanting of the holy name, how it removes the effect of material existence, the miseries of material existence, and how it gives to the chanter the blissful ocean of transcendental life. Okay. Go to now verse 2. But before I go to verse 2, I like to read the few interim verses which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So let's go to some interim verses. So verse 13, Mahaprabhu is saying, by performing congregational chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. So it is not just chanting yourself, which we normally do, which we call japa, but it is also the congregational chanting, means come together and do sankirtan, sing Hare Krishna Mahamantra, sing together. Okay, one can destroy the sinful condition of material existence, purify the unclean heart, and awaken all varieties of devotional service. Right? So, and those who have gone to Sankirtan, those who have gone to our Palo Alto, where we do program every day, if they get involved when the chanter is chanting, singing nicely the melodious tune of Hare Krishna mantra, if one joins the chanter in singing and dancing, at least I can tell from my experience that we of course we don't experience, because I am not in that level, but we, all of us, little bit or more, do experience that happiness, that sense of without care about this material world. We are immersed in that time when the chanting is going on. So that is like almost like a small drop of the test of what we'll ultimately get when we'll be able to chant the pure mantra. The verse 14, the result of chanting is that one awakens his love for Krishna and tastes transcendental bliss. Ultimately, one attains the association of Krishna and engages in his devotional service as if immersing himself in a great ocean of love. Okay, so you can see the, how to say it, you can see how the chanter evolves. So first he does congregational chanting, his sinful condition is destroyed, his heart becomes clean, he engages in devotional service, right? And then he tastes the transcendental bliss. And ultimately, then one attains the association of Krishna and engages in his devotional service as if immersing himself in a great ocean of love. So this happens step by step, right? But it is not that one step ends and then another step starts, like almost in a as if you are, moving from one room to another. It's not like that. You will experience the next level little bit while also you are in a particular state. Like, for example, when your sinful condition of material existence is going away, you will awaken within yourself the devotion varieties of devotional service. When you're doing devotional service, you might get a little bit of taste of this transcendental bliss. Like that, it's sort of, it's not like the grades in a school that you move from grade 1 to grade 2 to grade 3. It's not like that. Then verse 15, lamentation and humility awoke within Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he began reciting another of his own verses. By hearing the meaning of that verse, one can forget all unhappiness and lamentation. Okay. And that is where is the Siksastakam, verse number 2. Okay. So in verse number 2, is saying, my Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, in your holy name, there is all good fortune for the living entity. And therefore, you have many names, such as Krishna and Govinda. So Mahaprabhu is saying here that, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, means he's talking to Krishna, he's saying that there is all good fortune for the living entity. Why there is all good fortune? Because it's not just one name, it's not just one activity, it's not just one characteristic. He has varieties of characteristics, varieties of name, varieties of pastimes. It's not that the living entity will say, hey, I am getting bored just by chanting Krishna name, only one pastime, one characteristic. He has varieties. He expands himself. He has ensured, Krishna has ensured that not only this life, but many, many lifetimes, if the Jiva soul remains engaged in Krishna's pastimes, his names, it will not end, right? Like typically we hear this example where Ananta says is constantly chanting his opulences and his glories for many, many millions, trillions of years, but he is not yet done. So it is unending. So that is what Mahaprabhu is saying, that you are very merciful, that you've created so many varieties. And you have invested all your potencies in those names. And if you're more merciful, there are no hard and fast rules for remembering them. Right? You don't have to follow some rules and regulations, like maybe if you want to do Gayatri Mantra, then a lot of rules you have to follow. You have to go through the sacred thread ceremony and all, and then you can chant Gayatri. Right? Not everyone can chant Gayatri. I mean, there are so rules, there are so many restrictions, right? But to chant the name of Krishna, Govinda, or to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, the scripture has given us allowance that it does not matter who you are. Anyone can chant. Anyone can chant the name or the mantra which gives the highest benefit. The highest benefit is not restricted by any rules and regulations or caste or creed. That is the merciful nature of Krishna. My dear Lord, although you bestow such mercy upon the fallen conditioned souls by liberally teaching your holy names, very liberal, okay? Anyone can chant, no rules and regulations. Yet, I am so unfortunate, of course, Mahaprabhu is not unfortunate. He's saying it on our behalf. These prayers are actually for us. He is, already in the bliss of Radharani. So he's saying that I am so unfortunate that I commit offenses while chanting the holy name. And therefore, I do not achieve attachment for chanting. And this, in many of our Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam classes, you might have heard repeatedly the why chanting the holy name does not give us the effect. Although it is all merciful, it does not give us the effect. It is because we commit offenses. Right? There are many offenses, of course. There are offenses while you are, entering the temple. There are offenses in worshiping the deity. There are offenses for chanting, right? And then it's not that if you just do those 10 offenses for chanting, you are good. You can go and commit offenses for deity. No, it's not like that. But if you chant, at least if you avoid those 10 offenses, then the chances that you will commit the other offenses becomes reduced. Okay. So the question is then, if the name is so merciful, right? It is giving us everything, the highest benefit, then we have to get attached to it, because Mahaprabhu is saying you have to chant, you have to like it. Basically, it is not a duty you are doing, that you're finishing certain number of rounds, but you have to like it, you have to get attached to it. And the reason that attachment is not happening is Mahaprabhu, because we are committing offenses. And so the one bullet I have put here, at least as a starter, how can we at least avoid 10 offenses? Okay. And there, out of those 10 offenses, one offense I would like to specifically mention, relevant basically, or some of the verses we are going to read, this Astakam verses, is it saying that all those scriptures say again and again that getting attached to the material desires, to the sense gratification of this world, does not ultimately give us anything, basically. It ends with this life. It actually gives a lot of miseries. Still, we are attached to that. That is one of the offense. Okay. So you understand very logically that if you are attached to that, so what will happen when you're chanting? Those are the things, those images, those sounds, your mind will be filled with those, instead of your mind getting filled with Krishna's name, his pastimes, his glories, because you're attached to those. So that is one of the offenses. It's very difficult to overcome that offense, and that is what we are going to read in subsequent verses, what I'm trying to say. But that has to happen. That has to happen so that we build that attachment for chanting. I think I spoke for around maybe 20 minutes. I'll like to hear if anyone has any comments, any feedbacks, any questions, anything, and then I will go through rest of the verses. And if you're on Zoom, I think you can unmute yourself and you can ask.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
I'm Maharaj, I'm just a Prabhu.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. I had a question, it's like when you chant every day, you go through different emotions, right? Some day it is, very involved chant. Some day it is, as life takes you through its river. Mm-hmm. So what would be your advice, or when you go through that, how do you handle it?
Yeah, so and that is exactly some of the topics I will dwell into in few verses. In short, if you want to get the answer, is we have to, that struggle you are going through, you should have the desire that you want to chant purely, right? You want to immerse yourself. That struggle has to be there. And there is another aspect to it, and that is what we are going to discuss those aspects, that we have to take in our mind, we have to take shelter of Lord Krishna. That Lord Krishna, I'm not able to do it. I know that it is right. I know that I'm supposed to immerse myself in your consciousness. But because, and I know that these material desires, which I'm thinking about constantly coming to my mind, is ultimately not going to give me anything. I have to do. I mean, I'm not talking about the duties you have to do. Okay, that those you have to do. But when you're chanting, you have to understand you are not engaged in those activities. So why your mind is thinking about that, right? But it will basically. So that's the nature of our mind. And so you have to take shelter of Krishna. And that is what we'll elaborate a little bit more as we go forward.
Thank you. Dhanyavad.
Sure. Any other questions, anyone? Otherwise, we'll go back to the slides. Okay, I will quickly check if I have anything in the this one online. Okay, nothing here, nothing in YouTube. Yeah, okay, we'll go back. Okay, I will share my screen again. Where did my slides go? Okay, yeah. So how to avoid those offenses, right? And that is what we are discussing. I mean, how to avoid those, those material desires, right? So let's go to next verse. And between the Chaitanya Charitamrita Antilila 2016 that we read, right? And between the next one, there are some verses. So I will go and read those, okay, from Chaitanya Charitamrita. So here Mahaprabhu is saying, because people, verse 17, because people vary in their desires, you have distributed various holy names by your mercy. And many of these holy names are, it's not just the, the holy names of Krishna himself, it's holy names of, like Ram, Nishinga, Dev, Vaman, those are also included. They all have their own pastimes. Those forms have their own personality, their characteristics, right? And why Krishna has done that is because people have different desires. They have various types of desires, spiritual desires, right? So they get attracted to certain form. Some people are attracted to the 400, a very majestic form of Krishna, which is the Narayan form, right? It's like a CEO of a company, very powerful, opulent, right? While some people are attracted to Krishna form, naughty child, right? He's doing all kinds of things in Vrindavan, the sweet pastimes, right? They may get attracted to that. So, or someone may get attracted to Krishna being a very ideal person, right? Like as Lord Ram, the Maryada Purushottam Ram. So because people have their desires, so now Krishna mercifully have come in different form, in different names to them. It is his mercy. He's not saying that, hey, if you want to come to me, that this is the form, here are my characteristics, you take it or you leave it. No, he's not saying that. It's actually, we have so many different desires, and he's so merciful that he's coming in different forms, in different names, so that we can occupy from our point of view, from our level, at whatever level we are, we can reach him easily. Verse 18, regardless of time or place, one who chants the holy name, even while eating or sleeping, attains all perfection. It's not that when you're sleeping, you cannot chant. Yeah, you can chant in your mind, you can keep chanting Hare Krishna. When you're eating, you can remember him. You should know that your digestive fire is actually Krishna, right? It is a Krishna's potency. Right? Any time or any place, you can chant his holy name. There is no restriction. Okay. You have invested your full potencies in each individual holy name, and it is not that some name have more strength, some name has less. No, he is so merciful that any of his holy names have all the potencies, full, incomplete. So that means Krishna's name, his pastime, he is available everywhere in so many varieties. Okay, right? But in verse 19, further, he says, but I am so unfortunate. Of course, it's not again Mahaprabhu. It is basically is telling about us that I have no attachment for chanting your holy names. Right? He's sort of repeating that again, which he repeated in his 6th Astakam, verse 2. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then continues, O Sarup Damodar Swami, Goswami, and Ramananda Raya, these are his very two close associates with whom he used to talk many confidential pastimes of Radha and Krishna. He is telling them, hear from me the symptoms of how one should chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra to awaken very easily one's dormant love for Krishna. So now he is going to tell that how one should chant so that that dormant love of Krishna will awaken. Okay? And that's where we'll go to verse 21. Okay? And these are the symptoms to chant purely. Now, one has to understand that although these are symptoms, okay, it is sort of you try to have these symptoms and then it will help you chant purely, and then slowly these qualities will become innate in you. It will become part of your nature. So now what are the qualities? One who thinks himself lower than the grass, who is more tolerant than a tree, and who does not expect personal honor, but is always prepared to give all respect to others, can very easily always chant the holy name of the Lord. Okay. So let's take one by one. One thinks himself lower than the grass. What does it mean? That grass, if you grass on the field, if you see millions of people, they go over the grass. The grass, what does grass do? It kind of bends, right? Whenever someone goes on it. But it doesn't protest, okay? It bends and then comes back again. Tree is an example of tree, right? More tolerant than the tree. Now he's saying not just tree, but he has to be more tolerant than that. So what are the examples of tree? So tree is like, so one aspect of tree is even if you don't give it water, you cut it down, it doesn't say a word. On top of that, in fact, it gives you shelter, it gives you fruits, whatever you need. So he's giving. But when some harm is done to the tree, it doesn't raise even a single voice. So one has to be more tolerant than that. Who does not expect personal honor, but is always prepared to give all respect to others. So he himself does not expect honor, but give respect to others. So typically, this is like, if let us say there is a teamwork and you're coming together and serving Krishna, you will basically, praise your team members in front of everyone. But you should not talk about, about your own, contribution, but you talk about others. I'm just giving you a very practical example. Okay. Now the question is this, okay? How to be tolerant? And this is by the way, he's not saying that once in a while, he's saying all the time. How to be tolerant and respect others. Now the reason why I put that question mark there is that many times you will think many of us who come in this ambit of Krishna consciousness show this behavior, okay? But then when you go out and maybe, they are interacting with their own material world, it is not practical, but sometimes people go on completely on the other side of this behavior, taking the credits, if anyone says anything, he is not going to tolerate, he talks back, right? So that is our essential, basically, I won't call it essential nature, but that is a nature which has become ingrained over many millions of lifetimes. So how to be tolerant and be respectful to others all the time? Right? That's a natural question, because when we are in temple, when we are mixing with other devotees, we have people around us who will appreciate that behavior from us. So it is natural for us to behave that way. But Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not saying that. He's saying that whether someone appreciates your behavior or not, you still have to exhibit it if you want to chant the holy name of the Lord. Right? So there is that, we know inside that we cannot really do it all the time. We have that struggle within us, but we know that it has to be done because, Mahaprabhu has said, who is Krishna himself, and he is acting as a great teacher here to all of us. So he's saying that that struggle has to be there, basically, that we should know that this is how it should be. We are not able to do it. So naturally, we won't be able to chant the holy name of the Lord. That attachment we won't develop. Right? So that is 21 verse, and then so that is the symptoms to chant purely. Okay, so that is the symptoms one has. So what we do, that is why when we are in temple, we are among the devotees, going to book distribution and all, we exhibit these symptoms. At least at that time, we should exhibit these symptoms. And when we are going to book distribution, when we are going to someone's store, trying to interact with him, at least at that time, we should exhibit these symptoms. Although naturally, we may not be like that. So what it is trying to say, that you should exhibit that symptoms at least that time. So it is in your consciousness that this is the symptoms we need to have. Although other times when you go back to your material world, you, for reasons of your own, or maybe because of practical reasons, you may not be able to exhibit those symptoms. But you should know this is the symptoms we need to have to chant purely. Okay. I will go back to Chaitanya Charitamrita before we go to the next verse. Okay. So he's saying, verse 22, Mahaprabhu is saying, these are the symptoms of one who chants the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Although he is very exalted, he thinks himself lower than the grass on the ground, and like a tree, he tolerates everything in two ways. So let's understand this a little bit, dissect, right? So these are the symptoms of one who chants the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. He is not saying one who chants always, one who chants purely. So he's just saying that one who chants Hare Krishna Mahamantra has these symptoms, right? And in many of you who come to temple, who go to book distribution, do all kinds of service, even if you don't chant regularly like japa or all, you do have some attachment to this Mahamantra, and you sing, or you go to congregational chanting, and when you do that, naturally from your heart, you try to have these symptoms. You talk to others like with Prabhuji, Mataji, right? You give respect to them. You try not to be belligerent, like fighting mood and all that, right? Try to be tolerant. You naturally develop these things. Okay? So these are the symptoms. Although he's very exalted, so here he's talking about actually a person who comes in Krishna consciousness is an exalted person, basically. We should not think that, oh, this person has wandered, just kept wandering, and somehow by chance he came to Krishna consciousness. It's not true. Actually, coming to Krishna consciousness, because you have done a lot of pious activities in your past life, Krishna gave you this opportunity to come to Krishna consciousness. Okay, so from that perspective, you are an exalted person. Whoever you are listening to this, and even doing any service to Krishna, or even listening to lectures or chanting, are all very exalted. So although he's very exalted, he thinks himself lower than the grass on the ground, and like a tree, he tolerates everything in two ways. So now he's explaining the two examples which I just now enunciated. When a tree is cut down, verse 23, when a tree is cut down, it does not protest. And even when drying up, it does not ask anyone for water. So that is the one just now discussed, right? Verse 24, the tree delivers its fruits, flowers, and whatever else it possesses to anyone and everyone. It tolerates scorching heat and torrents of rain. yet it still gives shelter to others. Right? And then he says in verse 25, although a Vaishnava is the most exalted person, he is prideless and gives all respect to everyone, knowing everyone to be the resting place of Krishna. Right? Why he is doing that? Because he actually, if you look at it, it is not a very emotional thing. There is an emotion involved here, but it is actually a science, right? A Vaishnava sees in everyone Krishna. In everyone he sees Krishna as the super soul. That is why he respects. Whatever condition that person may be, whatever behavior he is showing, the reason for a Vaishnava to give respect to that person is because that person is ultimately, in control of Krishna. So it is like the person is like a moving temple. And that is how he is. A Vaishnava shows respect to others. If one chants the holy name of Lord Krishna in this manner, he will certainly awaken his dormant love for Krishna's lotus feet. Right? In this manner, one has to chant the holy name. Now, again, I will repeat to be very practical, and we are most of us, at least myself, I am in the mixed mode of devotion. So I have desires for, respect. I have desires for various material things, right? I'm chanting Lord's holy name. I come and do service once in a while, right? I go to the temple, but still I have those desires, right? But what I know in my heart that this is the stage, this is how I have to chant one day. Then only I have to do my part. I have to show that struggle. I have to be in that struggle. Okay. Knowing that I have to chant in this way, the way Mahaprabhu enunciated just now. Like they gave the example of tree and gave the example of grass. We have to chant in that way and give respect to others. Then only that ultimate prize will someday be given by Krishna to me, which is the dormant love for Krishna's lotus feet. As Lord Chaitanya spoke in this way, when you do this, then what happens? Your humility increases. And he began praying to Krishna that he could discharge pure devotional service. Then you can discharge the pure devotional service. That is possible only when you have this humility that comes in you, okay? Which is actually in Sanskrit or in Bengal, it is called dayaniya. Dayaniya this is the exact word used, called dayaniya, humility, okay, stage. Then you can discharge, praying to Krishna that you can now discharge the pure devotional service. Verse 28, wherever there is a relationship of love of Godhead, its natural symptom is that the devotee does not think himself a devotee. This is another important quality. Instead, he always thinks that he has not even a drop of love for Krishna. Very important. Okay. If we should not think the pure devotee, actually, the person who is chanting in this mood of humility, right? That is what we're discussing here. He himself actually does not think he does not have any quality of a devotee. That is the nature of a pure devotee. That shows his humility. Once a person becomes humble, it is not just the external symptoms, it's not just the external behavior, but in his mind, he thinks that he is not a devotee. And therefore, he constantly tries. All the qualities you saw before, like to be lower than the grass, to be tolerant like a tree, to give respect to others, not respecting anything for us. If you look at it, you may think it from an emotional standpoint, from an empathy standpoint, but this is also very scientific. Because he thinks that he doesn't have those, he tries to increase that more. and more he practices that, more and more that what he was actually just showing an external symptoms, he starts internalizing. This is actually in neuroscience, there's a research which came in Harvard Business Review once. It said that any behavior you constantly exhibit for 21 days, it has been said, it has been proved by neuroscience research, you start internalizing that behavior. So you understand how scientific this process is. It's not just emotion, it is a science. There is a science behind this. So you have to first practice those behaviors, those humble behaviors, and practice on a continual basis as much as possible. Don't do it at your workplace, because our workplaces where we work is an entirely different place. We all know that. Okay, I won't advise you doing there. But otherwise, when you're around devotees, at least you should practice as much as possible. When you go are doing book distribution, meeting other people in those avenues, try to practice them as much as possible. Okay. Then what happens that whatever I just now talked about, the neuroscience research, it will slowly, the symptoms you are expressing outside, you will start internalizing them. In the beginning, there will be a lot of hesitation to express that behavior. You might even, fight with some of the people who do not take books from you. Okay. When you're distributing books, or because not everyone is nice, right? So someone may slam the door on your face, right? So it's basically, you have to still practice. You have to keep practicing. You have to look at the other devotees who had been doing that, and learn from them and practice, because that is important. And when you do that, when you start internalizing, go in your heart, you start realizing that is the symptom you're expressing, but that is not natural within you. And then you actually, then you are going into that purity of your devotional. You start thinking that, hey, I was just expressing those symptoms. I am not really, I don't have that quality. Okay. And then you start internalizing it more and more. Okay. Now we will go to verse 29. And before doing that, before I go to verse 29, sorry, not this one. Yeah, verse 29. I think I will try to finish verse 29 and then I will stop for questions. I think that will be more logical. Okay. So in verse 29, Mahaprabhu is saying, O Lord of the universe, I do not desire material wealth. Pay extreme attention to this, all these things, what is being said, okay? And think about yourself when you are reading this, okay? O Lord of the universe, I do not desire material wealth, materialistic followers, a beautiful wife, or in case of a woman, a wealthy and powerful husband, right? Or fruitive activities described in flowery language. All I want, life after life, is unmotivated devotional service to you. Now, at least I can tell you in my case, my devotional service is not really unmotivated. Most of the time I can do devotional services without any motive, but something bad happens to me, then I immediately, start asking, hey Krishna, please, can you help me get this job? What about my retirement? All those things, start coming up in my mind. And then I realized that, that is the reason I'm not able to chant purely his name. Right? So I'm just telling from the practical aspect, okay? But what Mahaprabhu is saying, that you should say this. You should say this. Okay? Knowing that, and will actually I will skip that part. What I'm going to say, that comes later. So you should at least know that even though you have these desires, you know that they do not serve any purpose. That is what we're talking about, one of the 10 offenses before, right? It does not serve, at least theoretically you should know in your mind. It is, although I'm attached to these things, and that is why they're inflicting me when I'm chanting, okay, the holy name during my japa, but I have to get over it. I know that I cannot, but I have to get over it. I know that because that is what the scriptures are saying. So how to reduce that material desire? In the previous one, we are saying, previous verse, we saw how to, give respect to others and be more tolerant. Here, how to reduce this material desires, okay? And have this unmotivated devotional service, okay, to Krishna. So that's verse 29. I will stop here, and see if any questions. Otherwise, I will continue. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Ruchi here again. Prabhuji, why it has to be unmotivated? I mean, it could be motivated for love of Krishna, no? That's okay, right?
Yes. So when Mahaprabhu is saying unmotivated, so that has to be taken in the context of what he spoke before.
Okay. Yeah,
So
material.
motivations he's talking
Okay.
about. Yes, but if your motivation is to serve Krishna, okay, right?
Yeah.
I will like to qualify this thing. And Srila Prabhupada, during when he was, going through the movement, he also did this to encourage, okay, if someone he saw has attachment to certain things or some skill, he did say you can dovetail it to the service of Krishna, because he saw that that person is attached to that thing. If I ask him to leave it, okay, and just serve Krishna, he won't be able to do that, okay. So there is a very fine line there, in the sense, not everything we can serve for Krishna. Everything we cannot say that I will dovetail it to Krishna. We cannot go and steal and rob people and use that.
I'll donate it. Yeah.
Right. So the dovetail also has many shades and many fine lines. So we have to be very careful, when we say that motivated means, I'm earning, but how I'm earning. Because if you look at the current material world, if you want to have a very honest means of livelihood, it's sort of iffy, basically. Even if you are working in a very honest fashion, you have to understand for whom you are working, okay. He is not engaged actually in honestly presenting himself to the world in various ways, okay. Yeah, right. I'm just telling you here, but I'm making a general statement here.
Right.
Okay. So a person is also implicated when a person is engaged in an activity, although that person is doing it honestly, but that person is doing for someone who is not engaged in an honest activity. Okay. It might seem honest from the the contemporary standards of the present world, but because that person or that institution is not engaged in an honest way of dealings, the person who is working for that institution is also implicated to a certain extent. Okay, that is what is told in the Bhagavatam, basically. So this world is not a very fair. That is why Lord Krishna is saying in Bhagavad Gita, the nature of this world is ashashvatam dukhalayam. So that is why it might give us a sense of feeling that, hey, I am working honestly, like that, but then it's complicated. It's more complicated than that. And that is what will go into the few more verses, and that is what it will become clear that what is exactly we have to do. We have to go through these struggles, because Krishna has to see that this person is really interested. But if we start thinking that if we do all this, then we will get the ultimate benefit naturally, like sort of a computer program that you give all these inputs and you automatically get this output. It's not like that. Okay, so that is what we'll go into basically later. And how to even get these things, basically, all these things we are talking about, how to be tolerant like that, how to reduce material, what we have to depend, whom we have to depend on, right? Because we are not able to do it ourselves, right? So that is what we'll go into the subsequent verses.
Yeah, I had one more question. That Harvard study that you are mentioning. So I'm a neurologist myself, so I know that paper, right? But there is a conundrum there. In that study, you have to. It's rewiring of it's a plasticity of the brain. So
Yeah,
rewiring, right?
yeah, yeah.
So in that study, you have to practice that behavior and that thought constantly for 31 days.
Yeah, yeah,
Right. But now in the reality, if you think about at work, right, your perception precedes you even before you open your mouth.
yeah, yeah.
So it's like it's a difficult line to walk, and I say no, I can do it, but I just have to find a way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That is why I'm saying the workplace is probably not a very good place to practice this. But the
But then
problem
it becomes duplicate, right? I think
it
if
is,
you
it
are
is.
what you
You are being
should be
pretentious.
everywhere, no?
Yeah, you are being pretentious. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that is the struggle. That is the struggle Krishna is seeing. He is not seeing, Krishna is not looking at whether you are able to achieve that. There is no question of, because in today's world, important, not only today's, even in the previous yugas also, in the material world is sensed through achievements. In a material world, you are judged through your achievements. So that is why we see the achievement is very important. Okay, but Krishna is not looking for your achievement, whether you are able to achieve that tolerance, whether you are able to achieve that giving respect to others. He is looking, because remember, he is in your heart. He knows what is going on in your mind. He knows what are your intentions, everything he knows. He wants to see that genuine struggle, that you genuinely want this, but because of the various reasons, okay, he understands that. He understands that we are little jiva, we get easily influenced by Maya, right? He understands all that basically because he's God. He knows everything basically, right? But he's looking at that struggle and he says, oh, this person is really interested. Okay, this person is really interested. And that is what we'll read, that how to approach, while doing that struggle, how to approach Krishna, basically. So that is why after verse 29, there are few verses I've taken from Bhagavad Gita. That is what we'll read. We'll lay the foundation for the other verses, basically. I hope that clarifies.
Hare Krishna. Yeah.
Okay, I'll share the screen again. Okay. Did I share? Let's see. Can you? Okay, I think I did not share. Oh, share. Yeah. There you go. Okay. So now that is the most important question, right? How to be in this mood, right? How to give respect to others, how to be tolerant, how to reduce material desires. That's the main question. Right? And I will lay some foundational verses from Bhagavad Gita, and then we will jump to the other verses. So this is the 7th chapter in Bhagavad Gita, knowledge of the absolute, verse number 14. This comes after the 6th chapter, which is Dhyan Yoga, where towards the end, Lord Krishna is saying that, so that is the Dhyan you follow, the meditational yoga. And then in the beginning of 7th chapter, he starts saying that when you do that meditation, Ashtanga Yoga, what do you see? What do you achieve? You achieve that knowledge of the absolute. Okay, and he starts saying that the yogi is able to see there is Krishna, and then there are his two energies. One is the one set of energies, the inferior, which includes, the 5 elements, right? The fire, ether, water, and all that. And then 3 subtle elements, which is ahankar, buddhi, intelligence, and man or mind, right? Ahankar is falsifiable. And then he says there is a superior energy of Krishna, which is the jivas, and they are constantly struggling, okay, to overcome or to exploit. They're trying to exploit to fulfill their desires, exploit this inferior energy, but in that process, they are struggling. Somewhere there, in that 14th verse, Krishna is saying, Daivihi esha gunamai, mama maya durataya. That is what we have been discussing. Is all these desires we have, the reason why we are not able to tolerate is because we are false ego, we have ahankar. We are not able to give respect to others because we are very proud, right, of ourselves. We are not able to leave those, those material desires of, having an attractive opposite partner or wealth or, fame, whatever that call is, because we are attached to those material desires, is because we have this false ego, because we think that this I am, what is that called statement? I forget. I am forgetting the phrase, which means basically whatever I see is there for me to conquer. Basically, that's the mentality, because I can see those Krishna's external energy as separate from Krishna, because I can't see Krishna, right? But yogi is able to see that. Okay, right? So mama maya duratya, it is very strong. So I see that this is what is for everything, and I try to get that, and then I get implicated. So what to do? Mam eva ye prapadyante mayam etam taranti te. Okay, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. That is what Krishna is saying. So those who have surrendered unto Krishna. So what does this surrender mean? Okay, what does this surrender mean? And then maybe we'll touch about that a little bit. So they can easily cross beyond. Okay, it's not a struggle for them. They can cross beyond it, beyond that maya. That is what Krishna is saying. Go to the next verse from Bhagavad Gita. It is not in the same chapter. Next verse, as in this slide, is saying, verse 61 in the 18th chapter. Okay, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hriday Dese Arjuna Tishtati Brahmayan Sarva Bhutani Yantra Rudani Maya. This is what I was talking about just some time ago. We have to always understand that Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, in your heart and my heart. He knows everything, all the struggles we are going through. Okay, O Arjuna, and is directing the wanderings of all living entities. This is the most important thing. The reason why we are not able to overcome those, because we are trying to overcome those with our own effort, thinking us independent of Krishna, thinking that to do those things, it is all my effort. Everything has to come from me. No, this is what this verse is saying. It is not just your own effort, because ultimately you are being directed by that Supreme Lord who is situated in your heart. He is giving you, he's sanctioning you, he's giving you that permission to do that. Okay, and we are just seated on this machine, which is made up of material energy. So the machine is this gross body, and then of course the soul interacts with this gross body through the subtle body. The subtle body is ahankar, buddhi, and man. Think of them like an interface. If I don't know from whichever world you come from, it actually means that this gross body and the soul, there is something that in between which constantly sends signal to, which is the subtle body, which sends signal to the gross body and takes the signal from gross body and sends it to the soul. So that is a subtle body. That's the work of subtle body. Okay. And Supreme Lord is in the heart, and it is directing the wanderings of all living entities. So one may question, right, that means a thief who is stealing or someone who is committing a heinous act, okay, that is also directed by Supreme Lord. In fact, I will be, I will have to say that yes, it is actually written in Kaushitaki Upanishad, whose English translation follows like this, that if you want to desire to go to heaven, then he will let you go to heaven. If you want to go to hell, he will let you go to hell. Why? Because it's like the child and the child and the mother. Okay, sometimes mother sees that child is constantly asking for something which mother knows is not good, basically, for the child. Okay. So sometimes he may let the child do it, but will be on the guard. Okay, that he doesn't harm himself a lot. Right. So, like for example, if a child wants to come to kitchen and play with knife and all that, like maybe the mom, you are cutting the vegetables, I would also like to cut and he takes a sharp knife. The mom may go to the toy store and get a kitchen set where he has a knife of plastic, made of a plastic, so the child does not harm himself. Right? Maybe he will get injured a little bit, okay, here and there, but he won't harm himself. He or she will not harm himself. Right? So he is basically, because sometimes our desires are so strong that Krishna sees that if I stop this person, he will not stop, basically. He will do it anyway. Okay. So he lets that person do it. So he gives sanction. And that's the reason. So it is we cannot blame God for that, basically. It is our strong desires. And then when something bad happens, then we blame God. But it is because when we had those desires in our heart, we wouldn't stop, basically. Right? So he just let us, okay, go, do it and see. Right? And you get the taste of the outcome. Right? So that is, but the main theme of this verse is he's actually directing the wanderings of all living entities. Right? That the discussion just now I had was, it's sort of a side discussion in case someone asked that question. But the main thing is he is actually directing. He is the person sitting in our heart who is directing us. So one may ask again, so we had been struggling for so long, why is not reciprocating? You have to understand, you had those material desires for millions of lifetimes. For you, maybe that struggle looks very big, but for Krishna, who can, for him, there is no limit of time in terms of past, present, and future. He wants to make sure that you are ready to handle that love if he gives you. Right? Your heart is completely clean, because if it is not, then he will spoil that love. Basically. So that is why he wants to see you genuinely need it. Okay. So his standard of seeing thing as something genuine and our standard of seeing something as genuine is, I think that is where the problem happens. There's a big difference between what we see as genuine, but what Krishna sees as genuine. Okay. So this is that verse. Okay, so we'll go to another verse in Bhagavad Gita, which is the next verse. Okay, tam eva sharanam gaccha sharva bhavena bharata tat prasadat param shantim sthanam rakshashi shashwatam. O Shrine of Bharat, surrender unto him utterly. Him means actually it's him only, Krishna only, but he's saying in third person. By his grace, you will attain transcendental peace in the supreme and the eternal abode. He's telling that surrender unto him. Okay. Why? Because he is, in the previous verse, that's what we saw. He is directing the wanderings of the living entities. So surrender unto him and let him drive your life. Okay. Utterly, he's using this word. Utterly, not partial, utterly. And then you will go to transcendental peace in the supreme and eternal abode. Okay. At least the surrender, that act of surrender, mentally one should do. Okay. Mentally. So it is, you have to do it mentally. So this is sort of the foundation of the other verses that we'll go to. Okay. So which is now the verse 5. But before we go to verse 5, I think after verse 29, we'll go back to what Mahaprabhu said in between. Okay. Verse 30, my dear Lord Krishna, I do not want material wealth from you, nor do I want followers, a beautiful wife, or the results of fruitive activities. I only pray that by your causeless mercy, you give me pure devotional service to you, life after life. So this is the key, basically. In that struggle, this is the key. You give me pure devotional service to you. Okay. Now, one thing you have to understand, that you might have seen that theme in Bhagavad Gita also. He does talk about, Krishna does talk about pure devotional service throughout, but never he says to Arjun that you leave everything and do the pure devotional service. No, he says that you have to keep doing your duty. And more you do your duty, what you will find, you will feel that you are developing that detachment. Otherwise, if you leave everything and go, you may have that sense of peace, but you will not know whether you have really developed that detachment, right? Which makes sense, right? If you are you detached from something, you will only know if you come in contact with it. If you don't come in contact with it, how will you know you are detached? So the duties we are performing in our material life is, think of them like a dashboard of a person who is driving in a particular direction. The dashboard is telling him at what speed he is driving. Like that, when you are engaged in your material world, the feelings you get because of the various both ups and downs of life is like a dashboard to you, which tells whether you are detached or not. When something good happens, you become extraordinarily happy. That means you are not yet detached. Or when something bad happens, you become completely depressed. That means you are not yet detached. Okay. And that is, I'm just telling from my own life, basically. I'm in that state, basically. And I know, therefore, I am not detached. So if I leave everything and go somewhere, because I'm attached, I will create attachment wherever I go. Again, I will create attachment. So I cannot leave. So because this is my testing ground. My material life is my testing ground, whether I'm developing that detachment or not. So I have to be here. And that is what Krishna is telling Arjun. You have to continue doing your duty and also do your pure devotional service. So your life will tell you basically how detached you are with your material life. Okay. Okay. In great humility, considering himself a conditioned soul of the material world, of course is not, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu again expressed his desire to be endowed with the service to the Lord. Again and again. So that means, what do you see? In great humility, he is asking again and again. So not just once or twice. Okay? You do it again and again. You have to ask him that I want that pure devotional service unto you. You have to do that to be able to chant purely. Now we will go to the next verse, verse 32. Now here is begging for causeless mercy. What he is saying? Oh my Lord, oh Krishna, son of Maharaj Nanda, I am your eternal servant. But because of my own fruitive acts, I have fallen into this horrible ocean of nescience. Now please be causelessly merciful to me. Consider me a particle of dust at your lotus feet. Okay. So what is he saying? So important word is causelessly merciful. Now, what does that mean? What does the causeless mercy actually mean? Which is kripa. What does it mean? It means that I am not qualified to get your mercy, but since you are very merciful, please be merciful to me. Okay. So that is the state of mind. Not that, I behave so well with others, I'm very humble. I have left the desire of the material world, and therefore you give your mercy to me. Not that attitude. Because when you are practicing those behavior and you're struggling with that, slowly we'll start realizing that is only on your surface. Okay? At least for me, I can tell that's only on the surface. Inside, we still have those desires. Inside, we are still an intolerant person. Therefore, I don't have any quality to get your mercy, but please be merciful and have mercy on me. That is the key. That is the main thing. And when we do that, okay, so that is the 2 bullets below. Humility, which is the foundation of all good qualities, means all those things what we discussed in the beginning verses, right? I don't want to have all those material desires. I want to be tolerant, give respect to others, and many other good qualities. They automatically arise when we have humility. Okay. And how does you get humility? True humility you get only when you get that causeless mercy. So and until that time, we have to struggle and never give up. That is the attitude we have to have. We should never think that, oh, I tried for so many years, nothing came my way. I'm going to go back and let me have some fun. Okay. We have to have that struggle. We have to always see our struggle from the benchmark of so many lifetimes of material desires. We have to see, we have to think very broad. You have to think, you have to believe that so many lifetimes we had, and I was a very materialistic person, and now this life I have started this struggle. So from that perspective, it is just a drop. Even if it is your lifetime, it is still a drop. You should never give up. And Krishna is merciful. When you see that, when you go with this attitude that, hey, Krishna, I want to have this quality, you practice it, you struggle, but you say, I want to have these qualities, but I don't have, I want your mercy, mercy will come to you. Definitely. That is what, because it is, Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna himself, is telling. So this causeless mercy belongs to him. It is his thing. He will give it to you. That's what he's saying. Okay? So this is the main thing. So this is verse 5, 32, and we'll go back here. I have to speed up because I think I'm coming very close to 8:30. So he's continuing. I am your eternal servant, but I forgot your lordship. Now I have fallen into the ocean of nescience and have been conditioned by the external energy. Right? That is what you're saying. We are conditioned. Now a pure devotee actually never thinks that he has extricated himself or he has, escaped from the external clutches of external energy. He always thinks that he is still under external energy. That is the sign of pure devotion. Okay? Although he is exalted, okay, he is truly exalted, but he can sense that any time external energy can capture me. Okay? So he has that perception. Then he says, be causelessly merciful to me by giving me a place with the particles of dust at your lotus feet, so that I may engage in the service of your lordship as an eternal servant. Natural humility and eagerness is another additional thing that develops. Okay? Not only humility, dainya, but eagerness, lolium, greed. Okay, greed for what? He prayed to Krishna to be able to chant the Mahamantra in ecstatic love, that eagerness to chant the Mahamantra in ecstatic love, then it comes. It comes then. Okay. So not only you struggle to exhibit those symptoms, what we discussed, okay, but genuinely you pray to Krishna that I am not able to do it, I don't have these things, I know that is the most important thing, so that I can chant purely. Please be merciful to me. That's the key. Okay. Then we'll be able to chant Mahamantra in ecstatic love. Okay. That eagerness will come to chant mantra. And what happens I was reading somewhere that when a devotee chants in this way, his 16 rounds, he feels that I have not chanted enough. I want to chant more. Okay. But he also feels that I have duties to perform in this world. So he goes into the world, and that is where that struggle is. He has to still perform his duty, just like Krishna told Arjuna. You have to keep doing your duty. Now the struggle is other way. He has to keep doing his duty because although he doesn't find any taste in it, but he has to do his duty. His actual taste is now chanting the Mahamantra. Earlier, the taste was toward the material desire. Now the taste is towards chanting the mantra. But in both cases, he has to still keep performing his or her material duty. Okay. Next verse will go, that is the 6th verse. Okay. My dear Lord, when will my eyes be beautified by filling with tears that constantly glide down as I chant your holy name? When will my voice falter and all the hairs on my body stand erect in transcendental happiness as I chant your holy name? Okay. Now, these are actually the symptoms when we get that prema, that love, your love of, chanting, the ecstatic love we get in chanting his holy name, that prema we get. These are the various symptoms, the tears flow down from the eyes, then your voice falters, it chokes, then the hairs on your body will stand erect. But the main thing to remember here is we should actually aspire for that prema, that ecstatic love, not these symptoms. We should not, otherwise what will happen is, we will become a pretender. It is possible. There are people in Vrindavan and other places who exhibit these symptoms. They sort of practice like an actor or actress. They practice this thing. But if you look at their private lives, they do all kinds of nasty things. Okay. So we have to aspire for prema and not for these symptoms. What Mahaprabhu is saying indirectly is that when I will get that prema, basically, he is not saying that when I'll be able to exhibit these symptoms, although that on the surface, that is what it appears. He's actually asking for that prema, which leads to these symptoms. So it is very important to qualify what is Mahaprabhu actually trying to say here. Go to the next verse, 7. Intense separation from Krishna. Okay. Now, in that stage of prema or love, you feel, a separation, intense separation. What is that Mahaprabhu is saying? My Lord Govinda, because of separation from you, I consider even a moment a great millennium. Tears flow from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I see the entire world as void. So you are still going through your material duties. I won't call it material, it's just duties, basically, right? Duties of the world. But you don't find any meaning in it. You still continue doing that because you have to do it. It's your duty. But because there is no Krishna there, you find it meaningless, empty. So this is the kind of feeling you get, and you have this feeling all the time. When you reach that stage of prema, you will find this world meaningless. All that you are doing, it doesn't have any meaning, basically, except that you are supposed to do it, because it's a duty. You have to perform it, right? That is what you have to keep doing. But you have this feeling is because you have this intense separation from Krishna. You feel that separation from Krishna. Okay? And then we'll go to, so that is 39, and go through the rest of the verses quickly. Time. In my agitation, a day never ends, for every moment seems like a millennium. Pouring incessant tears, my eyes are like clouds in the rainy season. The three worlds have become void because of separation from Govinda. I feel as if I were burning alive in a slow fire. Right? Slow fire, why he gives the example of slow fire? Because in slow fire, one does not die immediately. Okay, there is a constant pain they're going through, right? But they don't die basically. So that is why. So it's like but remember, all these feelings he's talking about, these are all ecstatic feelings. So these feelings are not same as the feelings you have when you are, in real world, someone brings fire close to you, and that discomfort you have, it is not that feeling. You have to understand that these are all ecstatic feelings. These are all transcendental feelings. Okay, there is this love in that feelings. So this is different. We cannot compare any of these feelings. It's just because these feelings are so out of the world, to make it understandable for us is using the analogies from this world. But we should not compare them to the feelings of this world. It is not same as burning alive in a slow fire, like a material fire, like of a material person. It is not the same thing. Lord Krishna has become indifferent to me just to test my love, and my friends say better to disregard him. This is another important aspect I would like to say. So when you will go through this Krishna consciousness, people around you will say that, hey, you have left everything in the world. What did you get in return? Forget him, and he is never going to come to you. You just keep praying. So this is basically, by the way, many of these things are statements taken from, when Krishna left Vrindavan, and this conversation happening with Radharani, okay, and the other gopis. But this we can translate to us also. In our world, you will see people around you telling you, hey, you left all these things, earlier you enjoyed life, and now look at you. What did you get in return? Leave, forget that person, Krishna, man, come and enjoy life, right? And then what happens? While Srimati Radharani was thinking in this way, the characteristics of natural love became manifest because of her pure heart. The ecstatic symptoms of envy, great eagerness, humility, zeal, and supplication, again, further symptoms became manifest at once. Okay. The main things, again, are not the symptoms, but that natural love. Okay. A love not made, or there is no effort. That is why the word natural is very important. There is no effort there. It naturally comes. Okay. In that mood, the mind of Srimati Radharani was agitated, and therefore she spoke a verse of advanced devotion to her gopi friends. In the same spirit of ecstasy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recited that verse, and that is the last verse of Sixastakam. And as soon as he did so, he felt like Srimati Radharani. Okay, he came into the ambit of the internal potency of Krishna. That is Radharani. Let Krishna tightly embrace this maid servant. So let me go back to slides. Okay. Let Krishna tightly embrace this maid servant who has fallen at his lotus feet, or let him trample me or break my heart by never being visible to me. He is a debauchee after all, can do whatever he likes, but still he alone and no one else is the worshipable Lord of my heart. Remember one thing is, this thing, he can do whatever he desires with me, still he will remain my worshipable Lord. This is a great test. When we are going through your devotional life, there will be ups and there will be downs. Sometimes Krishna will give you and test that what is more important to you, that material thing I gave you or me. And sometimes he will take things away from you. And he will see, okay, everything was going nice and you came to me. Now the bad times came and you forgot me. You went to the other avenues, right? So he will test you. But this is the mood we need to have, this that Radharani's mood. Whatever he desires, he can do with me, but still he will remain my worshipable Lord. Why? Because we have to understand that everything came from him. He is the ultimate controller. Remember those Bhagavad Gita verses? Ultimately, he is sanctioning. Once we know that he is the Lord, he is doing everything, where else we can go? Basically, all the demigods are also under his control. Right? So what does it mean for a materialistic person like me? Is basically that, right? It is not really, the Radharani's feelings are different. For a materialistic person like me, is ups and downs that comes in my life. Once I have entered the devotional life, is happening because of Krishna. Okay, Krishna is doing it, but still he will remain my worshipable Lord. That is the lesson. That struggle has to be there. That surrender has to be there. Then Kripa, Krishna will give Kripa. Although it is not really because we are doing struggle, there is Kripa. No. That is the thing about Kripa. Kripa comes because he's a person, you have to think. He's not a machine who is, like a vending machine where we are putting our, hard work and struggle and outcomes is Kripa. It's not like that. He's a person. There are emotions there. Okay. But it will come. It will ultimately come because he is all merciful. Now I will stop here because I think I've spoken enough. If any final, I think I'm in the top of the hour actually. But if anyone has any questions, final questions, any comments, any feedback, any corrections, please go ahead. I'm all yours.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for such a nice lecture. A lot to think about and apply. Thank you.
Yes, it is difficult. Association of other devotees is very important. Yeah, in that struggle, what we are doing, we have to, if we associate with other devotees, it gives us that inner strength. And that's very important. That's what would be based on my so many years. That is what my advice would be. Discuss with other devotees in confidence. You have to have a devotee with whom you can share things in confidence, and then that is the most important thing, so that we can all go together in this journey. I don't think there are any. I don't know if online there are any questions. Without very much, I will quickly check because it's already about time. So we need to close the session. Okay, there are no questions here. There are no questions here. And okay, so no questions. Thanks a lot for patiently listening to me, and forgive me if I made any mistake or caused any offenses. So let's close this session by saying Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.